Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Victory Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles struggled against a pretty bad Cleveland Browns team, but they came away with the victory 20-16. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Connor Donald here on the Kelly Green Hour. Connor, we got to win, and that's all we can ask for at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to win. There's some scrutiny. There's a lot of stuff going around the social media, and that's what we expect. But all we can do is hope that there's consistency from here, because at this point, I mean, that's all we can hope for. Wins and some consistency to start to mount for this team. So a win's a win. We're gonna take it for this week.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into the victory, into the game, the good, the bad, the ugly. But as always, before we jump into that, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. You can follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10, and you can follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54, and follow Eagles
Pin pull.
I'm gonna get it. Eagles Pin Pool at Eagles Pin Pool everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, everywhere. Follow Eagles Pin Pool and subscribe, and let us know how we're doing. Let us know how all the other shows are doing as well. And if you're joining us live, let us know your comments. Who was the player that stood out to you? Your thoughts on the game, your thoughts on Nick Siranni, because we saw what he did and how he's been acting over the last couple of days. But I want to start out with Nick Siranni, Connor. Do you think he's trying to get fired? Like, everything that he's doing, it feels like he's trying to get fired. Now, I know he said that a bunch of the players went to him during the bye week and said, be you. Do what you did in 2022. We need that energy that you have. Because obviously the first couple weeks of the season, he's kind of been a tame Nick Siranni. But he was a little bit more outgoing, for lack of a better term, this week. And then at the end of the game, I mean, there were a bunch of fire Nick's chants at the game because the Eagles obviously started out slow again, and they didn't look as good as you would anticipate. You saw what the Detroit Lions did to Dallas. They also had a bye week last week. They put up 47 points on the road against a better team than the Cleveland Browns. Well, I guess they're better. I guess Dallas at this point is better than Cleveland. But like, so, and we're Philly fans. Like, we're going to show our emotion. If you don't come out and execute against a bad team, you're going to hear about it. And the fans came out, and then he, at the end of the game, he went up, like holding up his ear, saying, "What's that? What's that?" Took his kids to the press. I have no issue with the whole taking the kids to the press conference, by the way. Now, could he have been using them as a shield? Potentially, but I have zero issues with that. But what are your feelings and your thoughts on what Nick Siranni has done over the last 24 or so hours? And I'm dead serious in asking, like, is he tired of kind of being used as a puppet and kind of like Doug Peterson did? Doug Peterson didn't want to be used as a puppet anymore. When Jeffrey Lurie told him, look, you need to make a change, you need to get rid of Press Taylor, he's like, no, I'm not going to. He got fired. Do you think Nick Siranni might be going towards that route and like, look, I'm tired of this and I just want out, so I'm not going to quit. I'm going to force you to fire me?
I mean, it's an interesting way to do it. I mean, a lot of the players did back up his comment that, they asked him. Jalen Hurts made a comment. Brandon Graham made comments to the media saying that they went to him and they said it. So they're definitely backing up what Nick Sirianni's selling. So I don't. It's such a weird thing. We're not used to coaches being like this because Andy Reid was not like this. Doug Peterson was not like this. This is a guy who, like, Eagles fans just like to hate. Like, just the persona, what he spews. It's just what gets the fans and the media going. And he just talks circles. He doesn't seem to be able to figure out the right thing to say at the right time. and he lets his emotions get the best of him. But like you said, maybe the players like that. They seem to like that. They seem to want that. That was part of bringing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. There was a loss of swagger in the defense when he was gone that for that one season. So maybe it has something to do with that. It's so hard to tell. I don't think he's trying to get fired. I do genuinely believe the players are backing him up and he's backing the players up, and they want to be together and they want to be a unit and they want to move forward. I just think, the media is going to make this a thing. Social media is going to make this a thing. I agree with you. I have no issue with him bringing his children to the press conference. I completely agree with him on that point. He wants his child. He has this massive, immense passion for the game. He wants his kids to have that same passion for the game, or the same passion for anything they do in life. I get where he's coming from as a father. I can fully understand where he's coming from. Could he have been being used as a shield? I mean, he's still cursed a bit, and he still said stuff. So if it was a shield, it wasn't a very good shield.
Well, I think it was more
let his emotions come out, but
I think it was more of he didn't want to get the quote unquote tough questions. Like there could have been a lot of questions about like your job security. Are you worried about getting fired? Are you going to ask that in front of kids? Like, so that's potentially, I think, where like obviously he speaks his mind to an extent. Like he long talks a lot.
Big time.
Every answer, like his press conferences can go on and on and on. But I don't know. We'll see. Like, and do you think, before we jump into the game, remember a couple weeks ago there was all the talk of Jalen Hurts couldn't say a good thing about Nick Siranni. Do you think he's overdoing it? Like, do you honestly think Jalen Hurts means what he has been saying over the last couple of days about Nick Siranni?
I mean, like you said, you went from the way over here to all the way over on the other side. So to me, it's almost like Lori or Roseman went in and brought them into a room together and said, listen, guys, we got to shut this media up about you guys not liking each other, not being able to work together. It's not good. It's creating a negative, it seemed to be creating a negative feeling, throughout the locker room. So, I mean, I think he's overdoing it a bit, but I mean, if he just has to overdo it to make his bosses happy, and both of them can continue to do this, then fine. Go ahead and overdo it. Just make sure that it translates to something on the field as well. Because if you're overdoing it and you're still looking like garbage on the field, or we're still looking similar to the collapse of last season, then you're not fooling anybody. Because we're talking about it. Other people are going to clearly be talking about it. You're not fooling anybody. So make it translate from not just words into actual actions and passion and something on the football field.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that's going to be hopefully it of the Nick Sirianni talk. Like, look, we know he's a different guy, and he's going to portray himself differently. And we'll see going forward. The whole shave. There were a lot of people today. I was listening to WIP. People were saying that he's like in his Britney Spears phase with the shaved head, and maybe he's going a little insane. Like, I don't know. I'm never going to say anything like that about a person, but let's just hope that this win could propel the Eagles going for, like, they're a half game out of first place. The next 3 games are against against the 2-3 Giants, the 2-3 as of right now Bengals, and the 1-4 Jaguars. You have a chance here to get some momentum to win some games going into that Dallas game.
And the Cowboys
into the Washington game, excuse me.
Yeah,
or Dallas and then Washington.
The Cowboys are 2-3, and so you could kind of talk them down a bit too. But we know that they're going to play us tough as hell.
It's crazy. They went 8-0. Not to make this, they went 8-0 at home last year, and they've gotten destroyed in 4 straight home games, including the playoffs last year. It's been great to watch. And again, Detroit was playing with them too, like trying to get their offensive linemen to score touchdowns. It's pretty funny. All right. I think we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. The defense was pretty outstanding. Now, I know in the second half, there was a stretch where Deshaun Watson completed 12 straight passes, and it was like, you have got to be kidding me. Because I think on Friday I said it wouldn't shock me if we saw 2018 version of Deshaun Watson. And while he didn't have the yards. The 12 straight completions was really annoying. They still didn't score a touchdown, though, offensively. And, of course, their lone touchdown came at the end of the first half by a Myles Garrett block, and Rodney McLeod, former Eagles Super Bowl champion, scooping and scoring. I couldn't believe when that happened. Again, look, he's been really, really good for the Eagles. What the hell was Saquon Barkley? Why couldn't Saquon get that first down? He had plenty of space. He went out of bounds short of the first down marker. And then the next play call, and this, what Sirianni said in his press conference was he kind of overruled Kellen Moore. He called the play, and that Jalen got sacked on that. Why didn't they just run a tush push? Like, get the first down. You had a couple of timeouts. I'm going to put the blame on Saquon Barkley because he didn't get the first down. He ran out of bounds short of the marker. Get the first down and then go out of bounds. There was really nobody there.
Yeah, there was some questionable things offensively, and I think that this is going to be feels like it's going to be something we talk about every single week is what happened on this play, what went wrong on this play, blaming someone for something that went wrong on an earlier possession. I feel like it's just going to be a theme that continues to plague this Eagles offense throughout the rest of the year. But I agree that Saquon Barkley one, for a guy who has made very few questionable or bad decisions whatsoever since becoming an Eagle, that one was definitely a bit of an obscure one. This whole overruling of things again from Nick Siranni is becoming really frustrating too. At a certain point, like, he needs to be able to step back and allow Kellen Moore to do what Kellen Moore does. He's had very good offenses, and then of course we've seen the eventual collapse of some of these offenses. But
this doesn't look like the Kellen Moore offense. This looks like the Eagles' offense of the last year.
Yeah, and Thomas, I think Thomas Mott, another guy on YouTube that does stuff for the Eagles. He actually posted a picture of Keenan Allen's route running versus AJ Brown's routes, and he's like, "You're really going to tell me that Kellen Moore's running this offense?" And Keenan Allen's like all over the place, and AJ Brown is still playing the outsides. Yep. And we've been screaming for, and I guess he did only take the photo of shot from the targets of this past game, not the totality of the season.
Well, he's only played one game
But exactly. But like, one of the biggest things that we talked about on AJ Brown was use him in the middle of the field and in the open field. He is a yak machine. I mean, we see it week in and week out. He has a play where he's got at least 15, 20 yards after the catch, and he's making people miss, and he's running over people. Brett Eclipses. I was in the middle of typing about that Keenan Allen route tree when you started to bring that up. And I get it. Like, somebody in the comments on that, I checked out some of the comments on X. Somebody was like, well, Keenan Allen and AJ Brown are different players. AJ Brown, arguably right now, in his prime, is better than Keenan Allen right now at 33-year-old Keenan Allen. Yeah. And last year there was 32-year-old Keenan Allen who gets banged up. He's on every injury report.
So you're telling me
that you can't get AJ Brown to do what Keenan Allen could do?
Could it be the quarterback? Justin Herbert's 6'5", 6'6". Jalen Hurts 5'11", 6 feet. He doesn't like to throw the ball over the middle of the field. He doesn't like to get the ball. He doesn't like to go under center all that often. Could it just be that Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball? Is this a Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni problem, or a Jalen Hurts problem, where Jalen Hurts just doesn't let? He rarely throws the ball over the middle of the field anymore. Is it because he can't see over the line? Is it because if he goes to throw it because of his stature, it could get knocked down? Again, Justin Herbert's much bigger quarterback. That could potentially be the reason. What do you think?
I mean, it very well could be true. I mean, it would be a damn shame if the Kellen Moore offense has to be watered down to help a guy who may have troubles seeing over or managing to throw over his offensive line. Like, that is just not a problem you ever want to have in football. I mean, you can talk about Kyler Murray, okay, but like, Jalen Hurts is still not Kyler Murray size. Like, Jalen Hurts should still be able to make some things happen over the middle of the field. But it's frustrating because this offense doesn't look like the Kellen Moore offense that had Dak Prescott on pace for like 500 pass attempts and 5,000 passing yards before his leg got shattered. And Justin Herbert, the first year with the Chargers, where they were making some things happen. This does not look like those Kellen Moore offenses in the early times when he moved to these new teams. Of course, at the end of his tenure in some of these teams, it seems like his offense
He
became
was only
predictable.
with the Chargers 1 year.
Defenses were able to read him, but
yeah, he was with the Chargers for a year, so he didn't really have a chance to kind of expand with
more.
Justin
Yeah.
Herbert. Dak Prescott got better after Kellen Moore left. I don't know if that's something to see. But we've talked about him a bunch. A.J. Brown, that guy is, look, we've seen T.O., and T.O. obviously a Hall of Famer, and T.O. was great in 2004. And then 2005, it kind of went haywire. Deshaun Jackson, a different type of receiver. He was really good. And I'm only going with the receivers that I've seen personally that I think like are legit. A.J. Brown has a chance to go down as the best receiver in Eagles history. And look, I didn't see Harold Carmichael. I didn't see Mike Quick. I didn't see all those guys back in the 80s. But my God, what A.J. Brown is able to do. And you can see the trust and the confidence that Jalen Hurts has in A.J. Brown. So, I am, if he can stay healthy, we see it. And again, he also has that same confidence in Devontae Smith. We didn't see these passes against Tampa. We didn't see these go into Jahan Dotson or Paris Campbell or John Ross. But A.J. Brown comes back, Devontae Smith comes back, and Jalen has his one of the best games he had all year. No turnovers, no turnover-worthy plays. And that's what we've been asking. Let's get a clean game from Jalen. And that's exactly what we got. And we saw him using his legs as well.
Yeah, you must have put that bet down. You must put that bet down because he didn't end up committing a turnover. So.
I couldn't find unless I was on FanDuel and they didn't have a turnover bet, but I bet the Browns plus 8.5, thinking that would help the Eagles win the blowout. It didn't, so I did win a little cash there. But the Eagles still won, so that works.
Yeah, and the Bread Eclipse says AJ can do what Keenan Allen can do and much more. Yeah, having AJ Brown back, you can tell. There was one play, I think it was it wasn't a play that was ever gonna turn into anything, but I think that it was he kind of Jalen Hurts threw it out over the end zone, and it was for Jahan Dotson. But the way that he threw that ball, he knew Jahan Dotson had no chance. He wasn't even gonna make the effort to make it a attemptable play. But you see him throwing to AJ Brown, you see him throwing to Devontae Smith, and he talk about putting it where your receiver can get it. He does it every time. It's right in the breadbasket with those guys. But to your point, that play with Jahan Dotson, there wasn't even an effort. There wasn't even anything to say. I think he was on the move. It was going to be a hard play to make. But at the same time, if that was A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith in the back of that end zone corner, that ball was definitely going to be a few feet closer and at least an attemptable play.
So one of the things I do like, or I think Jalen did a really good job, was not forcing things. There was the one play where he took the snap, he stepped up, had to roll out, he held the ball with two hands, so if there was anybody there to try to knock it out, it wouldn't. And then he threw it away. He didn't force it to A.J. Brown or Devontae or Calcaterra. He threw it away. It was an incomplete pass. You take that. You live to play another down. So I'm like, if we can just continue to see that progression from Jalen, there's no reason that he shouldn't be getting better and better. And against somebody like the Giants Giants held the Bengals to 17 points, whatever it was. Yeah. So their defense is pretty good. And I know they're going to be without Kayvon Thibodeau, but they still have Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. So they still have, Ojulari. They still have a bunch of defensive guys there. So they're going to pose a challenge. And they put a whooping on the Eagles last year in whatever week it was that they went to Jersey. The Bengals have a decent defense. Who's after the Bengals?
That's a Washington game.
Yeah, Washington, of course. Then Washington and so Jalen just has to continue to put these games together where you're not turning the football over.
And Washington's without Jonathan Allen now for the rest of the year. He tore his pec, which is a massive loss for that.
They still have Deron Payne.
They do solve their own pain, but of course it becomes a little less scary when it's just one of them instead of the two of them. But Brett Eclipse, I'd be confident calling AJ Brown the greatest Eagles wide receiver if he keeps his production up for a few more seasons. I agree. I think you got to get at least 5 years of production with a team in my eyes to definitely start to put them down as like the best in the history for a franchise. You can't really do it after 2 or 3 seasons. So hopefully we continue to see that production. This is interesting because the team is continuing to evaluate Dallas Goedert for his injury. He could be expected to miss some time. Hurts was very willing to throw to Calcaterra, says Brett Eclipse. He actually was. He seemed fairly confident throwing to Grant Calcaterra. And we know my biggest
And he
concern
showed some
with
acceleration. Calcaterra did.
He did. And my biggest concern with Grant Calcaterra is not that he's not a good pass catcher. He's a great pass catcher. We know he was a purely pass catching tight end in his college days. My concern with him is he's not the all-around player that Dallas Goedert is. You're going to have him
Jack
and
Stoll.
whoever the backup tight end, Jack Stoll, come and flex around, because Stoll is a better blocker than Calcaterra, but both of them do not do the same things that Dallas Goedert does, or anyways close.
And last week they signed, it's like they kind of had a premonition here. They signed CJ Uzama to the practice squad. So if Goddard is going to be out, like these hamstring, we saw how long AJ Brown was out with his hamstring. Mailata is going to be out for a couple of weeks with his hamstring. Goddard will probably be out. Like the Eagles come in after the bye fully healthy, and then they lose Darius Slay.
We jinxed it.
We're
so excited about a fully healthy team, and now we got Darius Slay. They're still evaluating Goddard. They're still evaluating, and Mailata for sure is going to miss a couple games.
Whose podcast he was on today?
No, Michael Parsons
again today, a day after the game. Unbelievable. Like,
Nick Siranni and Darius Slay want to get people going. They just want to get the fans going.
So it is a different world. Like back in the day, there was a video going around Malcolm Jenkins and Des Bryant going at it on the field. Like it would have never. And again, social media wasn't prevalent back then, so maybe maybe it would have been like this back then. But players hated each other. They would have never appeared anywhere together. But nowadays, it's like everybody's buddy-buddy. They want to exchange jerseys and whatnot. All right, let's jump back into this game. On the defensive side of the football, what a starting debut for Cooper DeJean. That guy, they did a bunch of things with him that they couldn't do with Avonte Maddox. He blitzed multiple times. He was really good covering receivers in the slot. He had himself a half a sack. Shoot, Bryce Huff got a half a sack this week. He got himself on the stat page. Like, Cooper DeJean was really good. When Slay went out, Keely Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers came in. Ringo had a nice hit, kind of thumping. Quinyon Mitchell could have had an interception. Him and CJ GJ kind of collided for it. And kind of like, I know Quinyon was mad. Like he's had multiple opportunities for his first interception this year. And he was mad because he could have had that. But at least there was somebody there, two people there, not allowing the receiver to be running wide open down the field. But yeah, the secondary deserves a lot of credit. The defensive line, they deserve credit as well. I mean, 5 sacks. I'm pretty sure that's a season high. 5 sacks.
Pretty sure.
Jalen Carter.
It is absolutely a season high.
Mauro Ajomo had a really good game. There was one series that he pretty much owned himself. Again, Jalen Carter. Jordan Davis had a pretty good game. Now he didn't play that much. Bryce Huff again. And congratulations goes out to Brandon Graham, his 200th career game with the Eagles, the first player ever to reach that milestone. And he didn't play as much. And I think the Eagles are kind of trying to balance how much do you play Brandon Graham. And Bryce, the one thing that they did with Bryce Huff or allowed Bryce Huff to do this week, 4-point stance. He looks completely different when you allow him to get into a stance and run, just go. And he looked like the Bryce Huff with the Jets. Now, he only had a half a sack, but he looked a lot better. He looked more confident out there playing against a weaker Browns offensive line.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a starting point with Bryce Huff. I think you need to continue to let him do that, but we do have to be cognizant ultimately of the fact that who they were against. It's a banged up offensive line. They lost their center early in the game and ended up turning to their third string center, I think. So like we have to remember who they were playing, but it's a start. It's good to see they're letting Bryce Huff do what he's comfortable, the stance that he's comfortable in. Hopefully they will continue to let him do that. And if they do and he continues to get pressures and sacks, it just goes to show. And people have made the comment, the Dolphins defense got so much better as the season went on. And we're starting to see it a little bit with the Eagles. Of course, this was a game where we both said on Friday, you have to get sacks. You have to get pressure. You have to make it a really good game defensively because the rest of the team, because the Browns are terrible. They've looked terrible all season. They haven't been able to really take advantage of any team that they've been up against. So this was a game that the Eagles defensively had to do this. Some of the things were better than expected. Cooper DeJean, like you said, like seeing him be brought in on pressure, seeing him, he ended up targeted 4 times, gave up 2 receptions for 13 yards. That's pretty impressive. Albeit, Deshaun Watson could have went either way, but still. And like you said, Moro Jomo, I mean, that's good. I mean, Moro Jomo playing 21 snaps and Jordan Davis playing 21 is a little cringeworthy. Like the fact that Jordan Davis is on the same level of the depth options from a snap standpoint. And maybe they just rode the hot hand, or Jomo was playing really well. Maybe they just said, here, take a break, Davis, take some extra breaks because we're going to keep this guy going. But yeah, I mean, it was a good game all around defensively. 21 total pressures, like you said, 5 sacks. I mean, this could ultimately go down as the best game of the year for the defensive line. And it's not that I don't have confidence. It's just that, and I said it on Friday, it's purely that I'm taking this one with caution because we haven't seen this defensive line do much of anything beyond Jalen Carter's monster game against the Saints.
Deshaun Watson.
Exactly. Deshaun Watson and this offensive line is just that bad.
I want to see them do this against Joe Burrow. Now, again, Cincinnati's offensive line is not that great either, but Joe Burrow is really good. Like, you have to think about it. You're going up against the Giants. The Giants are going to have Devin Singletary back, going to have Malik Neighbors back. They still have Shepard and Slayton. So, or they still have Slayton, excuse me. So, like, you would think that their offense is going to probably put up a little bit more of a fight. I don't know if Daniel Jones is better than Deshaun Watson. I guess he is at this point. But they're probably going to put up a little bit more of a fight and be against the Eagles than the Browns did. But the Eagles defense overall, I mean, again, only gave up 9 points. Did a good job of keeping the Browns out of the end zone. I still didn't like that Watson completed 12 consecutive passes in the second half. That was annoying and that was frustrating.
I mean, he was also
DG is still going to be our best edge rusher 5 years from now at this point. That'll be year 20. I mean, he's probably going to – I know he said he was going to retire after this year, but I think he might come back next year.
If things continue to go well, like if he sees a way that the Eagles could win next year, he probably would come back.
And if he was willing to bring him back.
Exactly, that too. And I guess like one of the things, like if I'm looking at like the defense and I'm thinking of a negative, Nakobe Dean is sliding. He has some good plays in games, but he's proven that there's potentially some concern there if the year goes on, if injuries start to come. And he had 2 missed tackles, and he was a complete liability in coverage. So
how bad is Devin White then that Devin White couldn't beat him out?
How bad was Devin White that you couldn't give him a chance to split time with Nakobe Dean when Dean struggles? Like at this point, what now? If Dean's in these moments of struggling, it's literally Dean, Bond, and a couple of special teamers who aren't ready to take over starting jobs this year or maybe in the near future. Like Ben Van Sumer and Jeremiah Trotter are not starters this year. And you cannot shove them into that situation.
When is the trade deadline? I got to look this up real quick because I think the main need for the Eagles is pass rusher. defensive end, somebody that can get after the quarterback. But a linebacker's, I mean, it seems like we say this every year. A linebacker's right up there. So, again, like nobody's going to give you a good linebacker if they're available unless the team is really, really bad. But that's something that Howie Roseman probably should be looking into.
But do we trust Howie to make the move? What last year? Who was it? A buddy from the Titans that we picked up, Ryan.
So Tuesday, November 5th, which is between weeks 9 and 10. So that's right before the Dallas game. So
you have time.
The Eagles play that Thursday. The Eagles play the third. They don't play. They play Thursday after Dallas. So the Eagles play the Bengals. Oh, wait, do they play one? Oh my! I have the schedule right here.
They play the Giants. They play the Bengals. They play Washington.
Oh, so they play the Jaguars. So they play
Jags, yes.
The Jags on Sunday Night Football, and then they have Dallas. So after the Jaguars game is when the trade deadline is. So,
but I mean, I think this is a perfect stretch to figure it out. If Nakobe Dean continues to struggle against teams that aren't that good,
yeah.
You clearly know that you need to go and get in. And I think no matter what, edge needs to be addressed just for the sake of, we know that this off defensive line can be on, but can also be very off. They're very hot and cold. So to me, I think that you definitely, like, through this stretch of games, don't take it for granted. This feels like if Howie sees these guys perform, he's going to be like, that's not a need. I'm not going to waste any capital on bringing anything else in. I think you definitely need to continue to invest capital to get people in at edge and linebacker. There definitely needs.
Do we trust Howie at this point, though? Like this also, like Devin White was a
like
miss.
I said,
last was a miss.
Last trade deadline, we watched him make these moves, and we thought he was a genius. And we clearly were, all of us clearly were amiss when things did not go anywhere near like what we thought it was going to be. We went out, we thought he got these great deals on a couple of players, and they were nearly non-existent for the rest of the season for us, or just caused issues on defense for the rest of the season. So do I trust Howie to make the proper move at the trade deadline? Probably not.
Bretta Cliff says we should have never let TJ Edwards walk. I agree with that, but something tells me like he signed literally 5 minutes after free agency, and he's from Chicago.
There's tamper in there.
Well, obviously, but whatever. There's always tampering in free agency. I think he's from Chicago. I think he just wanted to go back home. And we're at a point again where the Eagles, they don't value the linebacker position. And obviously everybody thought that changed when they signed Devin White, but there's a reason why Devin White was available as long as he was available. Like, he's still available. Nobody has signed him. He's obviously probably waiting for the right opportunity, but I don't know. We'll see. We always mock, or people always mock like a linebacker to the Eagles, whatnot, in a draft, early in a draft. It's never going to happen. Like Trotter got drafted in like the fourth round.
Day 1 and day 2 for linebackers just is not the Howie way. Just isn't going to happen that way.
No. Is there a world where either Max Crosby or Myles Garrett are on the trade block?
Howie's not going to pay the price.
Well,
if it's for the Eagles.
Myles Garrett is a building block. Like, their defense is still good. Like, if the Browns could get Joe Flacco back, they would take it. Like, they were better last year with Joe Flacco than they are with Deshaun Watson.
They messed up on the Watson deal.
1,000% they did.
You just have to admit, like, no matter what, you have to pay that man every penny of that $244 million. So they restructured already. You keep kicking it down the road. We see this with Howie. At the end of that contract, there's going to be tens of millions of dollars that they're going to have to pay out over the 2 more seasons to Deshaun Watson. He's going to be the richest backup quarterback without a doubt, because eventually, how long can you really go on with this before you finally we need to do something? Because you have Jerry Jeudy is a good wide receiver. Amari Cooper is a good wide receiver. Nick Chubb and Ford, although banged up right now, are a very viable duo in the backfield. Like, you have Pete, and the defense, very good defense for the most part, banged up very badly, as we know and saw this past Sunday, but you have a very viable team. Your issue is at quarterback.
It is. Max Crosby, that would be
Chance.
fun.
He's a building block. They just gave
Yeah.
him an extension. The report came out today that they wouldn't even accept multiple firsts for Max Crosby.
Yeah.
I think that's a little crazy, but
So,
I agree.
If there's a team out there that would be willing to give it up, it would be Detroit. They just lost Aiden Hutchinson for the year, that nasty injury against Dallas. So if there were a team that was going to be willing to give up a lot, because their window is now, it's Detroit. I think Detroit would do it. But again, I don't think that Garrett or Crosby or anybody of that ilk is going to be available anytime soon.
No, and there was a report right before we came on the air that the Lions are in the edge market, obviously, but they don't want to mortgage their future to bring in someone when they know Hutchinson will be back again next year and so on. So it'll be interesting to see. But one thing is for certain, Howie can try and be as cheap as he wants at the deadline to get edge help. There's a lot of teams with edge needs. So he's not going to be able to be cheap. If he really wants to go in on trying to improve it, he's going to have to invest.
Yeah, it's a premium position. So everybody that thinks that they have a chance to make a run is going to try to get pass rush help. Like when Yannick Ngakoue was out there, he was a free agent. I wanted the Eagles to at least kick the tires on that, bring him in. I mean, you could help. They still need help at edge rush. I mean, we didn't really hear Josh Sweat's name yesterday. Did you? He had a sack, I think.
He had a sack, and he had a couple pressures, but it was still. We know with Josh Sweat, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 games out of him in a year where he gets like a couple sacks, but like he's just not a guy that you're always seeing get pressure. You're not always seeing him get in the quarterback's face. It's frustrating, especially in a contract year, to see that Josh Sweat is
he's not
probably not worth given another contract. And then what do you do now? You got Bryce Huff, and then you're pretty much starting from scratch.
They're drafting an edge. They're drafting an edge in the first round next year. Like it's going to be 100%. Brett Eclipse says, I feel like the best hope for our future at edge right now is a miracle with Jalix Hunt, and they won't even give him looks as a third rounder. I mean, I thought that I know he's a project. It's crazy that they drafted a project as a third rounder. But if the season goes off the rails, he will get playing time. But obviously right now they're a half game out of first. And with the 3 wildcard teams, you would think that they still have a high probability of making the playoffs. So they're not giving up on the season. But if the season falls off, it goes on the rails, they go on a long losing streak, you're going to see a bunch of the young guys play, I think.
Yeah, and I think what's important to note is like when you look at the defensive snap counts for the Eagles, the players playing they're very balanced. Like to me, you're like Thomas Booker. You're gonna continue to play Thomas Booker because you require that depth in the middle.
Did he play yesterday?
Played 8 snaps yesterday. But then your other guys who played less than 10. So the 3 guys who played less than 10 snaps, less than 20 snaps, whereas Thomas Booker, Avonte Maddox, Keely Ringo. Booker's
Ringo
probably
only got
got
in
to
there
stay because you don't have much defensive line depth. What?
I said Ringo only got in there because Slay got hurt and then Rodgers got hurt.
And then Ringo, they value him on the special team side of the ball. And Avonte Maddox, I mean, if he's really out of the picture, maybe there's room to squeeze Jalix Hunt in there. But I mean, Avonte Maddox is your best option. If anything happens to Cooper DeJean, he's obviously your best option to jump in there in a pinch if something happens to Cooper DeJean. At this point, like when you look at the way that they balance out the snap count and who's playing, who are you really going to take off that 53-man roster on or game day, whatever you dress on game day for Jalix Hunt? At this point, the fact that he's purely developmental is frustrating. As a third-round pick, it is extremely frustrating, and we see this every single year from Howie. But where does he fit in at this point is the question, and he just doesn't fit right now, which makes the pick even more infuriating.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We just have to. They need to figure it out. I want to jump back to the beginning. There was a Brett Eclipse that asked something. Let me find it. Where's my mouse at? There we go.
Will we ever see this team get a hot
Will we
start?
ever see? Yes. Will we ever see this team get a hot start? At this point, it seems their initial script is always a failure, and I don't get it. They're the only team in the NFL that have not scored in the first quarter. Their opening 15. Their opening 15 should be like the plays that you are super confident in, and they can't execute them at all. It's so frustrating.
I know, and maybe Brown and Smith just being back, they were just getting into the groove, and maybe next week we witness like the first quarter but it just feels like they come in so unprepared. Like we had Devontae Smith and AJ Brown in past games together. Yes, it was only like one game, but to that point, we still had these guys. And you then when Brown was out, you had Smith for a game. Like you had these guys in the first quarter, and you haven't been able to get that start at all. Like not even a field goal. Like you haven't even been able to. Like they went, what was it, like 88 plays yesterday on Sunday with no play from the red zone.
Yeah,
either team. Like
well,
they literally
the
played.
Browns got into the red zone late in the fourth.
Exactly. So they played between the 20s the whole time. Like they couldn't even get, like they can't even at this point. The Eagles are struggling to even get in the damn red zone. And I get it. Okay, you get the 60-yard touchdown, the 40-yard touchdown. I get that, but you're not going to win games by never seeing or rarely seeing the red zone. Like I don't know what it is that they that's going wrong, that they can't seem to get there, but they need to figure it out offensively, because this defense, we know they can come and go. And honestly, the offense can come and go. And we've seen it too, but this team needs to figure out a way where they can play together, or we're not going to make it. Like, look at a team like Detroit. Look at some of these other teams out there winning. Washington, like they are getting almost full games from both sides of the ball, or they have enough that, you can trust that the offense to put the ball in the end zone when you need it the most. I don't trust Jalen Hurts in this offense to put the ball in the end zone in a pinch when you need it the most. And that, I think, speaks volumes. I mean, we just beat the Browns 20-16. And this is a Cleveland Browns team that has not scored over 20 points in a game yet. And one of it, and 7 of their points came off that special teams play. Yeah, so
they haven't scored an offensive touchdown in like, was it like a game and a half or something? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't Deshaun Watson hadn't scored in like 23 drives or something.
It's whatever it is.
Drives or like some of the stats for Cleveland must just be like, and like Kevin Stefanski is like, he's a good coach. Like it's, you sit there and you have to know at this point and acknowledge that it's Deshaun Watson. Like there has to be an acknowledgement there of what do we do?
Well,
because
I don't blame Kevin Stefanski. I think it's ownership telling him he has to play him.
Of course he has to. They paid him $240 million. At this point, what do? You just kick the can down the road and put him on your bench? Like, you have to try and get something out of him. But the fact that Stefanski can't get anything out of him, and he was able to get what he got out of Joe Flacco last season, must just infuriate him, especially watching Joe Flacco out there for the Indianapolis Colts now and being able to produce.
If it was up to Stefanski, Winston would be starting. Winston would be playing. But obviously, all the money, like ownership is kind of forcing Deshaun Watson on him. And like I think if the Browns had it their way, they would hope that, and I hate to say this, like these allegations that keep coming out, they want one of them to be true so that it can void his contract. But obviously, I'm not an attorney. I'm not saying any of it's true, obviously, but I think that's what the Browns would be hoping. Brett Eclipse says, Eagles' initial script is calling verticals like you're being held at gunpoint and then get yourself into 3rd and long. That's why I still think it's Nick Sirianni's offense. That's what we did last year. We haven't seen motion from this Eagles offense. That's what Kellen Moore is about, the moving and the motion. Remember when they said that it was Nick Siranni? Everybody was saying it's Kellen Moore's offense. It's Kellen Moore's offense. He's calling the plays. I don't think that's true. I really don't think that's true.
It's so hard to tell because this doesn't look like any Kellen Moore offense when it was good or bad. In the past years, it just doesn't look like it at all. At no point did he ever turn to no motion and verticals on this often of a pace like they're doing this year. It's I Hopefully he turns the keys over eventually and just stops overruling Kellen Moore or trying to call any plays or do anything with Kellen Moore. Like, this must infuriate Kellen Moore to have come into a circumstance where you see Vic Fangio clearly has the majority control over what's going on defensively, and this guy can't even call his own playbook that's there. If well, I mean, whatever playbook's there,
So
obviously.
speaking of Fangio, did you hear when Sirianni said he called one defensive play and it didn't work out? Do we believe that?
I would believe it. The bread eclipse. Did you guys see Nick said he made a defensive play call? If you're trying to dip your toes into being a play caller on both sides, but like, you have failed on offense. You've proven your offense is a failure. It is bland. It is very easy to see through. No. Do not move over to as a defensive play caller. Do not be an offensive play caller. That's just not where you are meant to be in football. We see it. The players like the energy. The players respect you because of your ability to connect with them. Use that. Use your culture, your ability to connect with players to just get things going in the right direction. Like, I just don't know why he needs the attention or why he feels he needs to be a play caller. You weren't brought in like that, and most
I think he hates being
brought.
asked, "What do you do?" I really think he hates to be. And then, why is Nick so desperate to feel like he's important? It's kind of insane. He hates that question. What do you
Absolutely.
do? He wants to make it seem like he does something. Mike Tomlin doesn't get that question. Harbaugh doesn't get that question. Campbell doesn't get that question. He hates getting, like, that's the only thing I can think of. And I'm not saying it's right that he should be trying to put his hand into everything and trying to take over, because he shouldn't. But I feel like that's what he's doing right now.
But it doesn't matter if
he needs to step back, let Kellen Moore handle the offense, let Fangio handle the defense, and you're supposed to. We talked about this before. He's supposed to set the culture. He'll decide if you go for it on fourth down and whatnot. But if Kellen Moore calls a play, don't go, nah, I don't like that. Let's do this. No. Look, he can call a tush push. Sure. Have fun. We obviously know when the tush push is going to be called. And we know that's his play because that's the only play that works for him. But, dude, and Brett Eclipse said when they pivot to the short intermediate passes, things get rolling almost immediately. The 45-yard touchdown, it was the same play they ran against the Saints with Dallas Goedert, except it was going the other way. And I think it was Calcaterra or Stoll going one way. They didn't do an illegal pick. You got Devontae Smith coming across the field, wide open, goes down the field, boom, scores. And the Eagles did get fortunate because Cam Jurgens had a hand in the face. Could have taken the touchdown off, but refs didn't see it. Let Kellen Moore cook. Let's see what he can do with this offense. Because if we don't see the Kellen Moore offense, how are we going to know if we get to the end of the year, and how are you going to judge what the offense can do? Because is it Sirianni's offense? Is it Moore's offense? How the hell are we supposed to know?
Yeah, and I mean, there is a reason to believe that you can be there and your responsibility is strictly being a behind-the-scenes guy who builds a culture, commands the respect of your players, gets the respect of your players, and it's clear he's got all that. He's doing what he needs to do, except getting his hands out of the game day pot. Whatever happens on that football field does not pertain to you at all, except for maybe calling a tush push or making the analytical decision. When you have heard the voices in your headset say, go for it, you say, Okay, let's go for it. Whatever it is, that is your job. That should be his job. And there is a word, like you said, other guys don't get asked that question. There's, first of all, the fact that the media continues to ask the question is absolutely ridiculous in its own right. Because why does it matter what he does if the team is, and I think that that's the biggest issue. The team is not headed in a good direction or the right direction right now. So that continues to push the question, well, what are you doing? Why are you here? But it should not be a constant question. And I get why he's frustrated by it, but it does not mean that you should put your hands in the pot anywheres that they shouldn't be. It just isn't your job. It just isn't your job and shouldn't be your
That's
job. We see it. Why if you know what, if Jalen Hurts is being fake, it is what it is. But the fact that they're able to get on a similar page when they apparently have not been on the same page in a year and a half is speaks volumes to what they were able to do, sitting down and hashing it out or working things out, understanding what their roles are in this whole situation. If whether it was Howie or Jeffrey that had to tell them about it or tell them this is what we need to do. But ultimately, I mean, he was doing fine. Like, he's fine as a hype man, whatever. If you want to be a hype man, go ahead. Just don't yell at the Eagles fans. Like, I mean, they're going to say what they're going to say. They're going to feel what they're going to feel. But I mean, you were fine as a hype man. People hated it. And, you know, you go on the national media shows and they're sitting there and they're like, oh, what a douche this guy is and stuff. I get it, and that's fine. But that's kind of the personality that you know, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman clearly bought into when you came into the building.
Well,
It's what your players are buying into.
yeah, as user said, the one thing is he's been the same person since he's gotten here. Like this year, he's been trying to tone it down, and that's not him, obviously. Like he's been that brash, outlandish person. Maybe if he gets back to that, like he doesn't have to get involved in the offense or the defense and then get play calling, but just this is going to sound bad. Be the cheerleader on the sideline, I guess, as the head coach. I don't know. Brett Eclipse says he's not even good in the analytical situations. You might not be wrong about that.
But I think he's not good in the analytical situations because he's the guy calling the play in the analytical situation. It's fine and dandy to be like, this 4th and 2, go for it. But when it's 4th and 2, hey, I want to do this play in the playbook, that's where he goes wrong. I think he can be fine to make the analytical decisions. He just can't be the one to make the play call paired with the analytical decision.
And then Brother Cliff says the thing about Nick is that everything about the team gets better the less he's involved. It has literally been that way since 2021. That's when he gave up play calling to Shane Steichen, and they started running the ball more, and they made the playoffs as the 7 seed. And then they went to the Super Bowl the next year with Steichen running calling the plays the entire year. So, yeah, that should say something. And, like, honestly, I think if we could put truth serum in Lurie and Roseman, they would say they should have fired him after last year. If we could put truth serum in Kellen Moore, he would say this isn't my offense. Like, obviously, they're gonna. I don't want to use the word defend, but they're going to speak highly of Nick Siranni. But, like, deep down, they have to be going insane. Like, something needs to change. The team, this is looking like last year all over again. They're making easy games look hard when they should not be hard.
Yeah, no, it's true though. Like it's just, if truth serum were a thing, and you can't just tell with Kellen Moore, you can't necessarily just tell by the routes that AJ Brown's running. So I mean, we need to see more and with AJ Brown, because I mean, like you said, it's only been 2 games this year, but to a point, it tells a story that he, you know, hasn't really run in the middle of the field whatsoever. Like it does speak volumes in a way. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do stand by, because I know that people are going to say, oh, is he going to get fired in season? Without a continued collapse, no. There's no way he's getting fired this season. I think he stays on as a coach. They're going to
That's mainly because the Eagles don't like to fire coaches in.
No. You have fully capable people that could step into the role. Kellen Moore or Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio, he doesn't want to be a head coach, but he might step in on an interim basis to get through whatever is happening. But I mean, you have fully capable people who can step into that role, but unfortunately, I don't see him getting fired.
And this is a great question that Brother Cliff says. Saw someone tweet, if Nick was fired, would anybody want him as a head coach or OC? And if the answer is no, why is he still the head coach? No, well, even when he was the OC with Frank Wright in Indianapolis, he didn't call plays. And we saw what the offense was like when he called plays here. We're kind of seeing that now. I honestly don't think he would get hired. Now, Howard Eskin's dope self said that if Sirianni got fired, he would get hired in an instant. No, he wouldn't. He would not get hired. He would definitely not get hired as a head coach. He might get hired maybe as a quarterback's coach or a receivers coach or offensive quality control coach, but he's not going to be a head coach and not going to be an offensive coordinator. I highly doubt that. Look at all the talent that we have here. All the receiving talent, the running backs, Jalen to an extent. Like Jalen's not like top 5, but he's like top 10, I would say, top 12 in the NFL. And the offense looks stagnant. Lane Johnson said after the game yesterday that the offense looks like it's constipated. That's not good. And I don't think that's on Kellen Moore. I really think that is on Nick Siranni. He's just, nobody's ever going to admit that.
A true Lane Johnson statement, if I ever heard a Lane Johnson statement, or if I ever thought of what would Lane Johnson say in a situation that was like spot on. But I agree. I mean, at the end of the year, like we're going to be talking about Nick Siranni every single week. And we just literally spent about 25 minutes of our show talking about it because there was really not that much great to take from this game. Beyond the defense played super well altogether, minus a couple players.
And AJ Brown.
The offense was, it was the AJ Brown show. And then, of course, there's injuries that are going to be interesting to talk about.
So before we finish off
later.
Mailata is going to be out a couple weeks.
Yep.
Do you start Fred Johnson at left tackle, or do you move Mekhi Becton to left tackle and let Steen play right guard?
And they also have, and I know that maybe it's not the greatest option, but Darian Kennard's there, and he's
Jack Driscoll.
Yeah, they have on the bright side, they have options. Fred Johnson came in for 13 snaps and gave up 2 pressures according to PFF. So, and this
was also against Myles Garrett.
Yeah, it was against Myles Garrett. So hopefully he could handle his own against other teams. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's definitely going to be a Jeff Stoutland decision and who he thinks is going to be most comfortable there and give the Eagles the best chance to win. I don't know if I would take Mekhi Becton out of an area that he's doing well, and Cam Jurgens has struggled the last couple weeks. So I don't know if I would move Mekhi Becton out of there where you don't want to disrupt things there. But they have options. So on the bright side, they have options. It'll be interesting to play it out. I think, if, somebody goes down and your first thought was this guy, Fred Johnson, I would probably roll with Fred Johnson unless you have a belief that somebody else can do better. But if that belief is Jack Driscoll or Darian Kennard, they probably would have been on the active roster more than they have been. And
Driscoll was on the active roster this week.
Driscoll has been on the active roster, but Darian Kennard, I don't think has been on the active roster yet this year.
If anybody, it's going to be Fred Johnson. I think
it'll be Fred Johnson too.
Reddit Clip says, before we finish off here, Hurts making the call to chuck it to Brown after seeing AJ Brown one-on-one in press coverage with a backup is hilarious. Like that's their best plays right now are the tush push, the mash crossing route, and just chuck it to AJ Brown and let him swole Batman people. Like that's the best. That's their 3 best plays right now. That's not good, but let's hope that I'm hoping, and we're going to talk about it more on Friday. I'm hoping this is a Saquon Barkley game this week and let him go off against his old team. But we know what the Giants' defensive game plan is going to be. Don't let Saquon go off. So AJ Brown and Devontae Smith could have another big game. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, and we're obviously going to get into that live Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we won't lead too much into that. But yeah, it was. I'm going to leave it. My final statement is it was a game. And we won. We needed to win. I wish we had won by multiple scores. I hope no one took that monster 9.5 point spread because obviously me and you were both saying no chance on Friday. I wish we could have won by more and showed that we're a team that could dominate, because like you said, you can't just sit there and say, "Oh, well, oh, it's the bye week." The Detroit Lions came out of the bye week playing a better team, arguably, but they crushed them. They
One of them.
absolutely obliterated them. So the fact that we couldn't come out and, win by the spread, at least, like, I was, as much as I said don't take the spread, I wanted to see us win by at least a spread, because we really needed to come out and get some confidence. And the fact that, we got an offensive lineman calling the offense constipated, and we got some injuries again. It's not headed in the right direction right off the early bye week. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. But hopefully we can talk about things that aren't Nick Sirianni going forward. But
Let's
I
hope he
think we're
doesn't
going to
give
be
us anything to talk about the rest of this week. But it's Nick Sirianni, so who the hell knows? Thank you all for tuning into the Victory Green Hour segment of the Kelly Green Hour this week. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRaw54. Follow the Eagles Pin Pool Network everywhere on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch at Eagles Pin Pool. For Connor, I'm LJ. We'll be back Friday around 7 o'clock to get you set for the first NFC East matchup for the Eagles against the New Jersey Giants. Thank you and have a good evening.